There is a quiet weight in the spaces we occupy, a subtle awareness that we are never entirely alone. Even in solitude, an imagined presence lingers, watching, judging, witnessing. It is the unseen audience, a chorus of silent observers stitched into the fabric of our minds. Their gaze is neither tangible nor cruel, yet it shapes the way we move, speak, and think. Every hesitation, every small triumph, feels amplified beneath their invisible scrutiny. And so life becomes a delicate performance, as if our private moments belong not just to us, but to countless imagined eyes. In this tension between self and perception, we begin to understand a paradox: the more invisible the audience, the more power it wields over the theater of our inner world. There is a peculiar sensation that arrives uninvited, quietly, like a shadow brushing past the edge of awareness. It is the feeling of being observed, even when the room is empty, even when the world seems indifferent. A glance over the shoulder, a pause mid-step, a subtle tightening of the chest. These are the small, almost imperceptible echoes of an audience that exists only in the mind. Yet their presence is undeniable. They hover in the periphery, shaping movement, tone, and thought, a silent jury to every act of living. Children notice it first, before they can name it. A toddler hesitates at the top of the stairs, feeling the imagined gaze of their parent. They sense expectation, even in absence. A soft encouragement, a pointed look, a raised eyebrow. These early encounters with observation plant the seeds of awareness. Over time, the seedlings grow into intricate networks of imagined eyes, always watching, always assessing. Even in adulthood, these early patterns resurface, refined by experience yet fundamentally unchanged. In public spaces, the sensation intensifies. At a coffee shop, fingers hover over a keyboard longer than necessary, voices are modulated, steps softened. The mind constructs an audience, weaving faces into a narrative that judges, admires, or critiques. The mere thought of another's attention triggers an internal spotlight, illuminating insecurities, amplifying doubts, highlighting gestures that would otherwise pass unnoticed. There is a paradox here: the more invisible the audience, the more commanding its influence. Its power is in its intangibility. It can never be confronted, never negotiated with, yet its effect is real, measurable in pulse, posture, and expression. The unseen audience is not merely a product of anxiety or imagination. It is a reflection of the social self, the part of consciousness that seeks validation, coherence, and belonging. Humans are wired to detect patterns in social environments, to anticipate approval and rejection. Mirror neurons fire in response to imagined observation, preparing the body for reactions that may never occur. Even in solitude, the brain simulates social scenarios, rehearses conversations, and anticipates judgments. This is not weakness, it is the remarkable sensitivity of a mind built for connection, a mind attuned to the invisible web of human perception. Yet, awareness of this presence can also feel burdensome. Every private action is suffused with an imagined significance, every decision shadowed by unspoken appraisal. The unseen audience turns ordinary moments into performances, private rooms into stages. A pause in speech becomes deliberate, laughter measured, expression controlled. And beneath it all is a subtle anxiety, a nervous acknowledgement that no matter how solitary one may be, some part of the self is perpetually on display, even if only to one's own inner spectator. In these shadows, identity is both constructed and performed. The self becomes a theater, a space where roles are constantly assumed and evaluated. But there is beauty here too, a quiet intimacy with one's own consciousness. To feel observed is to be aware is to be conscious, and to be conscious is to exist fully within the delicate tension between self and perception. The unseen audience is both a mirror and a veil, reflecting the mind's insecurities while obscuring the truth of its own creation. It follows silently, shaping actions, modulating thought, influencing emotion, yet it cannot reach into the essence of being. And so life proceeds beneath its gaze, a delicate dance of awareness and adaptation. To recognize the shadow is to acknowledge its power, but also to glimpse the possibility of observing oneself with the same quiet empathy that the imagined audience might offer. The sense of being watched does not emerge fully formed. It is cultivated, nurtured quietly over years. It begins in the earliest interactions, before language, before conscious reflection. A baby looks to their caregiver's face for signs of acceptance, delight, or disapproval. Each smile, each frown, each fleeting glance becomes a signal, a lesson in the power of observation. In these moments, the seeds of social awareness are sound, tiny, fragile, yet destined to grow into complex networks of sensitivity to human attention. By the time childhood arrives, the unseen audience is already present. A child standing in the schoolyard gauges the reactions of peers with acute precision. Laughter and whispers are interpreted, decoded, internalized. Every choice of word, every gesture, is filtered through the imagined scrutiny of others. The mind begins to catalog approval and rejection, learning to anticipate the invisible eyes that judge behavior. This is the architecture of social consciousness. Observation becomes anticipation. Anticipation becomes self-modulation. Family dynamics intensify this pattern. In households where praise is scarce or criticism sharp, the child learns that survival, acceptance, or love is conditional. Every move is monitored by parents, siblings, even distant relatives. The gaze becomes internalized. The child begins to carry the audience within themselves, an invisible presence that whispers reminders of expectations. Over time, these internalized observers shape identity, dictating how one smiles, speaks, and inhabits the world. Culture and society add further layers. From early schooling to neighborhood interactions, norms are observed, absorbed, and reinforced. Children witness who is praised, who is ignored, and who is admonished. They learn to measure themselves against these subtle cues. To imagine the collective gaze of a community even when alone, play becomes practice, imitation becomes rehearsal. In this way, the social mind is sculpted not just by the visible, but by the unseen, the unspoken, the imagined. Even adolescence, a period marked by intense self-consciousness, amplifies the power of the unseen audience. The gaze of peers, real and imagined, can feel omnipresent. Clothing, posture, speech, and even silence are carefully calibrated to meet anticipated judgment. Yet paradoxically, this awareness also fosters empathy. By imagining how others perceive them, adolescents develop the cognitive skill of perspective taking. The same mental machinery that creates the sense of being watched also underpins social intelligence, the ability to navigate relationships, and the understanding that every action carries social weight. By adulthood, the seeds planted in childhood have grown into intricate, sometimes invisible, frameworks. Even in moments of solitude, the mind rehearses potential scenarios, a conversation, a presentation, a walk down the street. The imagined audience moves seamlessly between past experiences and future anticipations. It is both protective and constraining, guiding behavior while occasionally stifling spontaneity. Yet, it is also deeply human. The sense of being observed, cultivated over a lifetime, is a testament to the species' social nature, a reflection of our relentless drive to belong, to be recognized, and to matter. And so, the unseen audience is not merely a phantom of anxiety or fear, it is the echo of countless early lessons in human connection. It is the imprint of caregivers' faces, peers' laughter, societal norms, and cultural expectations, all woven into the delicate fabric of the psyche. To trace its origins is to understand that being observed is inseparable from being human, and that the silent spectators of our minds carry within them both the weight of scrutiny and the potential for profound social attunement. In recognizing these roots, one begins to see the unseen audience not as an external force, but as an internalized mirror, reflecting the collective experiences that have shaped perception, empathy, and self-awareness. Its presence is a shadow cast by the earliest teachers, by family, friends, and society, marking the first chapters of the human story of observation, expectation, and belonging. The sensation of being watched is not merely poetic or metaphorical, it is rooted in the very structure of the human brain. Neuroscience reveals a mind exquisitely tuned to social perception, a mind built to detect, anticipate, and respond to the gaze of others. The unseen audience, though intangible, triggers neural circuits as if it were real, highlighting the intimate connection between biology and experience. Central to this sensitivity are mirror neurons, specialized cells that fire both when an action is performed and when it is observed. They are the foundation of empathy, imitation, and social learning. When imagining an audience, these neurons simulate the presence of others, preparing the body for responses that may never occur. A nervous smile, a tensed shoulder, a racing heartbeat. These are echoes of a brain rehearsing the social dance, even in isolation. In essence, the mind cannot fully separate imagined observation from reality. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, is equally involved. It reacts to potential social threats, detecting subtle cues of judgment or rejection. Even a fleeting thought that one might be seen can trigger heightened alertness. The result is a cascade of physiological and emotional responses, increased heart rate, shallow breathing, heightened attention to self-presentation. In moments of solitude, the mind simulations are enough to activate these systems, reinforcing the sense of an invisible audience. Psychology further illuminates the phenomenon. Social anxiety is a clinical example of the unseen audience's intensity. Individuals experience a magnified sense of scrutiny, often imagining critical evaluation where none exists. Cognitive models suggest that the brain continuously estimates others' thoughts and potential judgments, a process known as theory of mind. This capacity is adaptive. It helps humans navigate complex social environments, but it can also amplify self-consciousness, creating a feedback loop where imagined observation feels indistinguishable from reality. Beyond anxiety, ordinary humans experience a more subtle form of this effect, known as the spotlight effect. Research shows that people systematically overestimate the extent to which others notice their behavior, appearance, or mistakes. This cognitive bias explains why a stumble in the hallway or a forgotten line in conversation can feel monumental, as though hundreds of eyes are observing. In reality, the attention of others is far less concentrated, but the mind's perception is powerful enough to generate genuine emotional response. The unseen audience also operates in the realm of memory and imagination. Humans constantly simulate social interactions, rehearsing future encounters and reflecting on past ones. The hippocampus stores these experiences, creating a mental archive from which the mind can draw scenarios of observation and judgment. Even when alone, a person may feel scrutinized because the brain is drawing on this archive, blending memory, expectation, and imagination into a seamless experience of being seen. This scientific perspective does not diminish the emotional truth of the unseen audience, it deepens it. Awareness of being observed, imagined or real, is both a psychological artifact and a biological reality. The same neural pathways that enable empathy, social intelligence, and learning are those that amplify the sense of scrutiny. The invisible eyes are not imaginary in their effect. They are literal triggers of attention, arousal, and self-reflection. Understanding the science provides clarity. The unseen audience is not merely a product of fear or insecurity. It is a reflection of humanity's social architecture, the interplay between brain, mind, and environment. Each nervous glance, each modulated gesture, is the echo of millennia of evolution, of brains wired to respond to observation, to connection, to belonging. The audience may be unseen, but its presence is undeniable, a living imprint on the physiology of human experience. The unseen audience is not always gentle. Its presence can spark tension, a subtle but persistent conflict between authenticity and performance. Every thought, every gesture, every choice becomes measured against imagined scrutiny. Even when alone, one may feel compelled to conform, to adjust, to perform, not for any external reward, but for the silent appraisal of invisible eyes. This internal theater breeds a quiet struggle, a resistance between who one is and who one believes must be seen. Self-consciousness is the first symptom of this tension. The mind becomes hyper-aware, scanning behavior for errors, inconsistencies, or signs of inadequacy. Speech is filtered, laughter-tempered, posture adjusted. Actions that might have flowed freely in solitude are interrupted by internal commentary. Do they approve? Am I enough? The audience, though imaginary, exerts power over the body and mind, directing attention, shaping emotion, and influencing decision-making. Conflict deepens when personal desires clash with anticipated judgment. A person may long to speak freely, dress as they wish, or express an unpopular opinion, yet hesitation arises. The mind rehearses the potential reactions of others, constructing a gallery of imagined gazes and whispered critiques. Here, resistance takes root. The self recoils from exposure, hides behind conformity, or curates its presentation to minimize risk. Each choice is a negotiation, each act of restraint a compromise between inner truth and external perception. This struggle is not always conscious. Much of it occurs beneath awareness, in subtle micro-adjustments. Shoulders stiffen without thought, smiles are constrained, words carefully chosen. The invisible audience becomes a lens through which the self is perpetually refracted, altering perception of identity and worth. Over time, this can lead to emotional fatigue, a quiet exhaustion born of constant vigilance, of never truly inhabiting the body without consideration of another's gaze. Yet, resistance is not merely oppressive, it is also instructive. It illuminates the contours of vulnerability, revealing where insecurities reside, where desires clash with fear, and where personal authenticity is constrained. The inner conflict is a mirror, reflecting both the strength and fragility of social consciousness. Awareness of the unseen audience exposes the delicate interplay between self-expression and social survival, between freedom and adaptation. Cognitive psychology describes this phenomenon as self-monitoring. High self-monitors are acutely sensitive to social cues and adjust behavior accordingly. Low self-monitors act with less regard for external perception. Both patterns illustrate the tension between internal drives and social expectation, highlighting how the mind negotiates between authenticity and observation. In either case, the unseen audience exercises influence, sometimes subtle, sometimes profound, on thought, feeling, and action. The resistance often manifests in anxiety or shame, yet it is also a force for reflection. It invites examination. Why does this imagined gaze hold such power? Which judgments are internalized and which are projected? Through this inquiry, the inner conflict becomes a lens for understanding oneself, an opportunity to witness the ways perception, real or imagined, shapes experience. In these moments, life is lived in duality, the self as actor and observer, desire and inhibition entwined. The unseen audience is both the source of constraint and a teacher of awareness, revealing the nuanced terrain of human psychology. To recognize this tension is to confront the invisible stage upon which identity is continuously performed, and to glimpse the possibility that resistance itself may carry the seeds of insight, empathy, and eventual liberation. Amid the quiet tension of self-consciousness, there are moments when the illusion of constant observation flickers and fades. These are the glimpses of awareness, brief, luminous instances when the mind perceives the unseen audience for what it truly is: a construct, a reflection, a projection. In these fleeting realizations, the weight of imagined scrutiny lightens, allowing for a new perspective on one's own responses and patterns. Awareness often begins with observation itself. A person notices the subtle cues of self, monitoring the way posture stiffens, voice modulates, or gestures are restrained. There is no judgment, only curiosity. Recognition alone transforms the experience. The imagined audience, once unquestioned and pervasive, becomes visible in its artifice. The realization is quiet, almost imperceptible, but its impact resonates deeply, opening the possibility of understanding oneself outside the lens of constant appraisal. These moments are often triggered by reflection or mindfulness. A walk alone, a pause in conversation, a breath taken in solitude. Suddenly, the imagined spectators recede. Their presence is no longer commanding, no longer defining. The mind sees its own patterns clearly, the rehearsal of approval, the anticipation of critique, the self-conscious choreography that once felt unavoidable. In recognizing these mechanisms, one begins to disentangle the self from the silent gaze that shaped it. The glimpses of awareness are also nurtured by social experience. When someone encounters genuine acceptance or indifference, the imagined audience loses its authority. A friend's unjudging presence, a stranger's inattentive gaze, even a public moment of vulnerability without consequence, all reinforce the understanding that observation is neither omnipotent nor omnipresent. Reality becomes a mirror reflecting that most scrutiny exists only in the mind, a product of habit, expectation, and early conditioning. This awakening is not a single event but a gradual process. Awareness grows through repetition, through reflection, through the quiet practice of observing one's own responses without criticism. The self becomes both participant and witness, capable of recognizing fear, hesitation, and self-consciousness without being fully consumed by them. In these moments, the inner dialogue shifts from a script of performance to a space of insight. I notice, I feel, I am aware. Psychology frames this as a form of metacognition, thinking about thinking. By observing one's own reactions to the imagined audience, the mind gains perspective. Emotional responses become data rather than destiny, experiences rather than imperatives. Anxiety softens when the audience is acknowledged as an internalized projection rather than a literal force. Through this lens, the unseen audience transforms from a source of constraint into a tool for understanding, an opportunity to study the intricate relationship between self-perception and social awareness. Even small realizations can be profound. A gesture made without hesitation, a laugh shared without self-editing, a conversation held with openness, these are confirmations that the mind can exist beyond the perpetual gaze. The unseen audience remains, but its influence is no longer absolute. Awareness creates a subtle freedom, a space where authenticity can emerge alongside social consciousness. In these glimpses, the tension between self and spectator softens. Life is experienced more fully, with curiosity instead of fear. The invisible stage remains, but the actor is no longer bound by imagined critique. And in that space, brief though it may be, one can see clearly the audience is not a master, but a reflection. It is not omnipotent, but a mirror for understanding, guiding the mind toward presence awareness and quiet liberation. The unseen audience does not disappear entirely, nor does it need to. Integration begins not with resistance or denial, but with acknowledgement. To live fully with the awareness of invisible observers is to accept their presence without surrendering to their authority. The mind learns to inhabit both worlds, the internal stage and the self beyond observation, finding equilibrium between social awareness and inner freedom. Integration begins with noticing patterns. A person observes how imagined scrutiny influences posture, speech, and emotion. They see the subtle cues of self-monitoring, yet do not react with fear or criticism. Awareness becomes a tool rather than a trap. In this state, the unseen audience shifts from a source of tension to a quiet guide, a gentle reminder of human connectedness and the mind's inherent social sensitivity. Presence emerges when attention returns to the immediate moment. Rather than projecting endlessly into imagined judgment, the mind focuses on experience itself, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the sound of a voice, the rhythm of breath. Action is no longer preemptively moderated for an audience that exists only in thought. Choices become grounded in reality rather than anticipation. A conversation is felt fully, a laugh is expressed freely, a gesture is made with authenticity. The invisible eyes may linger, but their power diminishes as attention anchors in the here and now. Social interaction also deepens integration. Real observation, the gaze of friends, colleagues, or strangers is met with discernment rather than automatic deference. The mind can distinguish between constructive feedback, indifference, and imagined judgment. This discernment allows for authentic presence in relationships, reducing the sway of internalized, imagined audiences. Social connection becomes a source of attunement rather than anxiety. Mindfulness practices reflection, and gentle self-inquiry support this process. individuals learn to notice how thoughts of being observed arise and to allow them to pass without resistance. They recognize that these thoughts are echoes of developmental patterns, evolutionary wiring, and past experiences, not absolute truths. In this awareness, the mind becomes flexible, able to observe without being dominated, to respond without compulsion, to exist fully without constant rehearsal for an audience that need not control them. Integration does not erase vulnerability. Moments of self-consciousness still occur, as they always will. Yet vulnerability becomes tolerable, even instructive. The invisible audience, once a source of subtle tyranny, becomes a companion in self-awareness, a lens through which reflection deepens rather than constrains. The tension between inner desire and social perception softens into balance, a rhythm of observation, adaptation, and acceptance. In this state, life unfolds with quiet richness. The mind inhabits its social nature without losing its individuality. Presence becomes both practice and reward, a gaze outward and inward simultaneously, an embrace of experience as it is. The unseen audience remains, a gentle echo of human interconnection, but its shadow no longer defines the self. Instead, it offers a space for understanding, for reflection, and for measured authenticity, reminding the mind that being human is to exist always in relation, sometimes imagined, sometimes real, always meaningful. Integration, then, is the art of presence, seeing the audience, acknowledging its influence, yet choosing how it shapes the moment. It is a delicate balance between the internal observer and the external world, between self-consciousness and awareness. In this balance, the invisible stage transforms from constraint into perspective, from subtle pressure into a quiet guide for living with clarity, empathy, and inner steadiness. The unseen audience has accompanied humanity for as long as consciousness has existed. It is woven into the fabric of social life, a companion in both solitude and company. Its presence is subtle, persistent, and paradoxical, an invisible thread connecting self-perception with the collective human gaze. Yet, in quiet reflection, one can perceive it not as an enemy, but as a mirror, reflecting both fragility and strength, insecurity and insight. Life, when observed through this lens, becomes a delicate interplay of perception and presence. Every action, every choice, every fleeting emotion is filtered through imagined observers. But this is not solely a source of anxiety. It is also a testament to the depth of human consciousness, to the mind's capacity for empathy, anticipation, and connection. The audience, though unseen, is a reminder of shared existence, a reflection of the subtle ways people matter to each other, even in the absence of acknowledgement. In solitude, the audience often feels heaviest. Thoughts of judgment or expectation emerge unbidden, shaping gestures, tone, and attention. Yet, within these moments lies opportunity. By observing one's own reactions without judgment, one begins to disentangle the self from the projection. Awareness grows that the audience is not omnipotent, but a construct of experience, memory, and imagination. The mind can watch, acknowledge, and continue free from compulsion, guided only by gentle curiosity. There is poetry in this realization. The invisible gaze, once feared, becomes a lens for introspection. It illuminates patterns of thought, moments of vulnerability, and the subtle ways one seeks approval, belonging, and understanding. By recognizing its influence, one learns to inhabit life more fully, to act with intention rather than rehearsal, to engage with the world while maintaining a delicate interior autonomy. Presence is both the gift and the practice, a conscious choice to exist authentically in the tension between self and observer. Socially, this reflection fosters empathy. Recognizing the unseen audience within oneself cultivates awareness of the similar pressures others carry. The knowledge that everyone navigates their own internal stage creates a quiet compassion, a recognition that behind every measured gesture, hesitant word, or anxious pause is a mind negotiating the delicate balance of observation and authenticity. In this sense, the unseen audience becomes a bridge connecting individual experience to the shared patterns of human existence. Ultimately, the psychology of the unseen audience is a meditation on connection, perception, and self-awareness. It is a journey from unconscious influence to mindful observation, from subtle anxiety to reflective understanding. The audience, once invisible and imposing, reveals itself as a companion in the human story, a presence that shapes, reflects, and occasionally illuminates, without defining the entirety of being. Life continues on its quiet stage, with shadows and lights, with imagined eyes and genuine interactions. The mind learns that it can exist in relation without losing itself, that awareness can coexist with presence, and that observation, whether internal or external, can be met with gentle attention rather than fear. In this reconciliation, a deeper truth emerges: the unseen audience is a mirror, yes, but also a teacher. It offers insight into human nature, into the rhythms of thought and feeling, and into the enduring tension between self and society. In the end, the unseen audience remains, but its weight is transformed. It becomes a reflection to observe, a presence to acknowledge, a companion in the quiet work of awareness. And in this stillness, one can finally see clearly to be human is to be observed, imagined, and known, not as a threat, but as a part of the intricate tapestry of connection, consciousness, and reflection that shapes every life.